All right, so you talk about old, young Saquon Barkley and Jahmyr Gibbs, man. Obviously, this is another, after we've talked about Bijan and Brees Hall. This is getting to like that mid-tier running back one area of your draft, right? You're looking at like RB5, RB6, RB4, RB7, depending on what site you're using or whose rankings you're looking at or your own personal evaluations. But Jahmyr Gibbs stepped in last year, and he started off the season kind of slow, man. Obviously turned things around, and then, finish off the season very strong, finishes the RB10. Saquon Barkley had a rough go around in his last year at the Giants, obviously trying to prove that he was more than the franchise tag. He finishes the RB13 last year, but got a fresh new start this offseason. Headed to Philly. There's been a lot of talk about his role in the offense growing. There's been a lot of talk of Jahmyr Gibbs' role in the offense growing as well. Which one of these players you like?
I like Jahmyr Gibbs. And the reason why I like Jahmyr Gibbs is we saw it at the second half of last season. I think Dave Montgomery was out until week 10, and then he came back in week 10. And what we saw was just a shift. And like you said, it kind of got Jahmyr Gibbs did not start out, hitting the ground running. Dave Montgomery was involved a lot, and Dave Montgomery was the primary red zone back, goal line back for this offense early on. And then once that second half of the season happened, Dave Montgomery comes back in week 10. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs outsnap him in majority of the games that they're playing together. I think he only outsnapped them in all of them but two, I want to say, or possibly even one. And then, but the key thing is that heading into the season, I think that a lot of people kind of liked Jahmyr Gibbs, but they weren't sure how the red zone was going to work with Dave Montgomery. Was Dave Montgomery going to be Jamal Williams, and he was going to be DeAndre Swift? Well, what we saw, the most important thing that I try to tell everybody this, is that Jahmyr Gibbs actually split with Dave Montgomery and actually had one more red zone carry than Dave Montgomery in those games when Dave Montgomery came back in week 10 onward. So how I look at the situation is, there's a guy that they just drafted with the 12th overall pick. There's a guy who's 27 years old. What do we think is likely going to happen this year? The guy who they just drafted is going to get a little bit more volume, potentially split the red zone work again, maybe even see a little bit more than Dave Montgomery this season? Or do we think it's more likely that Dave Montgomery sees more work? I think that Dave Montgomery in this offense is basically Jamal Williams without the touchdown upside that Jamal Williams had, because Jahmyr Gibbs is eating into that workload. So, and Jahmyr Gibbs finished the season 17 points, 24 points, 24 points. The last 4 weeks of the season, 26 points, 21 points when Dave Montgomery was back. So I do think that Jahmyr Gibbs is basically will be the new Alvin Kamara of the NFL coming up here. And I think that he could realistically be the best running back in terms of pass catching, could lead the league in receptions for the running back position. And I think that there's a world touchdowns go his way, he starts to see those touchdowns. I mean, finish off the season. This is his games 14. All right. 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown. Finish off the season scoring the touchdowns. This team likes to run the football when they get in close. I really think that he could potentially be the RB1 overall in fantasy football as well. If he sees a little bit more work going forward, which I think could be realistic. Not to say that I don't like Saquon. It's just I don't think he has a touchdown upside that Jahmyr Gibbs could potentially.
Yeah, no, Gibbs, like they were using him in the red zone a lot. I like this kid, man. He's a hell of a player.
He's
and
explosive.
Explosive, man, especially if they can use
slippery.
him in that DeAndre Swift type role. He's what they wanted DeAndre Swift to be. But Speaking of DeAndre Swift, he came in there and played on the Eagles last year and looked like a whole different back behind that offensive line. And so when Saquon Barkley initially signed with the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason, bro, I was like, that might be the number 1 running back in all of fantasy football. The potential is sky high, I think, for Saquon Barkley this year. And, last year obviously was a down season for him, but the year before that, he was a 1,300-yard back. And there's only one caveat I would say. There's the one huge difference maker with Saquon Barkley, because we know he's going to get work in the passing game. Jalen Hurts will check down. We know the offensive line is great. We know this Eagles team is going to score a lot of points, so they're going to be in the red zone quite often. There's only one caveat to this whole thing, and that's, does Jalen Hurts take those short yardage touchdowns away? And if that's not the case, we might be talking about a 15 touchdown back in Saquon Barkley.
No, I agree.
If Jalen Hurts and the tush push has been either reduced or eliminated from this offense now that Kellen Moore is here and Jason Kelce is out of this thing, If that is the case, we might be talking about a 15 touchdown guy in Saquon Barkley, which would, I think, put him at least in the top 3 conversation, if not number 1 or number 2. So I am all over Saquon Barkley, and I feel like the bar has been set so low because we've been disappointed by Saquon Barkley before with injuries, because he's been on shitty teams, because he's had bad quarterback play and bad offenses around him. We have not seen Saquon Barkley in an offense like this since his rookie year when he was the number 1 running back. So I have high expectations for Saquon Barkley, and I think if you can get him in the back end of the first round, it's such a steal at value, because I think the guys between 2 to 6 all carry very similar upside, and Saquon Barkley to me is probably in the best situation offensive-wise, maybe out of all those guys.
No, I hear it. The one thing is the tush push. I mean, that's just going to be the biggest thing is Jalen Hurts, double-digit touchdowns. Every year he's been the starting quarterback. So the biggest thing, I don't even think it's so much Kellen Moore. I think it's Jason Kelce. Because it's also interesting with Josh Allen too. Like Mitch Morris isn't there. So are they going to be able to do the tush push too? So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with these 2 quarterbacks. Was the center the difference maker? Are they able to get anything? Maybe anybody can come in here. It's more the quarterbacks and just them being bigger quarterbacks that can run the football. So I think it's, if you had Jared Goff as the quarterback there in Philly, I really would love Saquon. It's not that I don't even love Saquon. I love where Saquon's going. I think he's I prefer Gibbs over him, but back end of the first round, pick 11, 12, potentially even in the beginning of the second round, I think Saquon's a money pick there. Yeah. So I do like him, but I do just kind of wonder, he might be just slightly handicapped from being potentially the RB1 overall in fantasy, just because of Jalen Hurts and the tush push. But like we talked about, maybe it's not a thing as much as it was in prior years. We'll have to see.
Yeah, no, it's going to be tough, man, because if it does affect him, that means he's probably not a top 3 back. He still can finish in top 5.
I think he'll be still excellent. Yeah, he'll be better than DeAndre Swift was last year.
Bro, and DeAndre Swift was killing it the first few weeks.
I want to say he was top 5 in rushing yards for the season. He went over 1,000 yards.
You just imagine Saquon, his body behind that shit, man. Hair. Imagine they use Saquon in the tush push, which they could, because he squats damn near the same. I want to say more than Jalen Hurts.
That's going to be the interesting thing with this team, is just how it works out this year, because they haven't had a running back like Saquon Barkley as well. So it could change.
The only thing I would say about Jamir Gibbs, right? I love that he got the red zone work later on. And I love that they said they want to get him more involved in the passing game, is that there's only so many plays in a game. And this team has a lot of weapons. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Sam Laporta. Both guys are big parts of the offense. David Montgomery does get used in the red zone. You also have Jameson Williams now, who they've been hyping up as far as having a major leap. So there's a lot of guys in this Detroit offense. And so my only concern is, unless this team is putting up 28 to 30 points a game, there's only so many touchdowns, so many receptions to go around. Are we going to be asking too much of a guy that's probably going to be playing around 60% of the snaps at running back? That's my only concern with him. But otherwise, I love the talent. I think he's there. I think Saquon, we know for sure he's locked into damn near every running back touch there is.
Yeah, he'll be a true bell cow back.
Yeah.